everyone, and welcome to Hebron Talks. Welcome to the second episode, and Michael and I will be talking about what is the importance and how do we make a difference between freshly roasted coffee beans and supermarket beans. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right.
So some topics that we will be discussing today is what happens during or right after roasting. What is the best time to drink coffee right after roasting, and why it is better to get coffee that is freshly roasted than coffee that you can find at your local supermarket. And also, last, we will be talking about how it impacts the coffee chain and the people in the coffee community.
All right. So first of all, I want to say that this coffee that you made, it is definitely way better than the one you made before.
Well, thank you. That means a
And
lot.
for the ones that are asking, we are drinking right now a coffee that comes all the way from Costa Rica. It is from the region of Chiripo, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
And we are trying, trying just to develop the best profile of our coffees, just for the ones that are interested. And it's an awesome coffee. What can I say?
I mean, I actually think this one turned out really well. I mean, it has a nice little light citrus flavor.
It is. It did. I'm sorry. Has light acidity. It's pretty good.
It's a light-bodied coffee. Overall, this is a very good coffee to drink. A good coffee to chat over. So yeah, also that's why I chose this coffee.
It is indeed. And should we start now?
Yeah, let's dive right in. Yeah, so what we're gonna start with is what happens during or right after roasting. So yeah, could you start us off with what happens?
I think the meaning behind all the roasting process is to develop all the aromas and all the flavors that are just inside in the deep core of the coffee beans. That is the principal meaning of the coffee, of the coffee roasting. And what we are trying to do in this phase is just to develop those qualities that all the coffee beans can give us. And there's a lot of things that happen in coffee roasting. There's a lot of chemical changes, physical changes, and
chemical reactions as
chemical
well.
reactions. I don't know. There's a whole world we can talk about coffee roasting, but pretty much that is the meaning behind that. What do you think?
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, right after we have fresh coffee that comes right after roasting it. It will have absorbed a lot of CO2 from the roasting process. So that is also something that it loses the CO2 eventually over as it gets older. So it starts losing this CO2. It goes from the being inside of the bean to pushing its way to the outer layers of the bean, and then it just over time it will lose all of this CO2. So what you want is some of the CO2. You want that to stay in the coffee. I mean, right after dropping the coffee, normally the flavors have not developed as much yet. So normally, if you try coffee that you just roasted, 1 or 2 hours off roast, I mean, we've tried it before. That where you make a pour over with it, and it just doesn't quite have the same flavors as it would a couple of days later.
Yeah, it just have a plain taste. There's nothing researchable to take out of that beans, and it is just because of that, because all the aromas, all the flavors haven't got the time to develop properly. That is why the coffee beans have to wait a certain time before they get brewed. Before they get grinded and then brew it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and also there's also a difference, let's say, from lightly roasted beans to darker roasted beans. Whereas darker roasted beans, because of more chemical reactions have happened, that they would release the gases quicker than a lighter bean would.
Yeah, sure, and I think that is because Well, as they happen to get more time into the roaster, into the drum, the surface of the beans get like more porous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that is the way they get the gas quicker.
Mm-hmm.
Am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And also, well, whereas if you go darker, let's say when you get to second crack, by that time, the bean has opened up even more, right?
Yeah, sure.
So about first and second crack, we'll get to that later in some other podcasts. These are some terms that not everyone will be familiar with, but we will get to that later sometime in some other podcast. But yeah, at the same time, a lightly roasted bean would normally be dropped right after first crack, and because it has not developed quite as long as you say a medium or darker bean would, it still has a lot more structure. Whereas
it is harder.
Yeah, exactly. It is. Yeah, it's a harder bean. So yeah, it also makes it harder for the CO2 to escape.
Yeah. And actually, talking about all those CO2 escape things, like, could you tell me why it is the importance of having freshly roasted beans from your local roastery?
Well, I would say, let's say if you buy coffee that's from any supermarket, what happens most of the times is you do not have you don't have the date, the roast date on the bags, so there's no telling how long the coffee has been on the shelf already. So, like, coffee is a shelf-stable product, but it will have lost a lot of the aromas and the nuances already right after just 1 month of roasting. It will already have lost so much of it right after 1 month of roasting it.
I don't know, like, we're not even talking about all the time that a coffee bag could spend into the storages of the supermarkets.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
I mean, it could happen like even a year before a coffee get into the supermarket, and when it sells, like, I mean, that could be a whole lot of time.
Yeah, no, exactly. So there's just no telling with the coffee. Whereas if you buy coffee from your local roastery, they should have the date. And I know there's not everyone has the date on it, but you really should include the date on the bags, just so you can be assured, that you're getting the freshest coffee possible. And another part of drinking coffee is the experience. It's the aroma first and foremost. And when you do get your fresh coffee, you still have that fresh aroma. It could be smell it could be hints of almond or maybe chocolate in the coffee. So that's something that you will have already really lost if you buy a coffee that has been sitting on the shelves for quite a long time.
And talking about this thing that you said early, I think it is pretty important for the roasteries that are from around to get all those details about the roasting date and all the traceability details into the bags. And if you are one of those people that used to buy coffee from your local roastery and they don't give you those details, you should ask for them.
Mm-hmm.
Because,
exactly.
I mean, you are contributing to this whole large chain of coffee producers. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't come all the way to us. Like, there's a lot of people that are behind this. Like, we are just the last parade.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It's the last stop here.
Yes, and I mean, there's a lot of people behind us that are doing so much hard work, and they need to be recompensated for that, I think.
Exactly.
And I mean, I am not talking about like a money compensation. I'm talking about, like, they deserve, well, their coffee deserve to be known by you. Like, and also, like, you as a customer, you deserve to get all the details about the coffee that you are drinking. So you should ask for them. You go ahead and ask your friendly barista about the details of the coffee they are consuming. I think could make a big difference.
Yeah, no, of course, and as well, like, let's say when we roast our own coffee here, we would normally cup it like a day after, going back a little bit, like we would normally cup it like a day after roasting to see like the tasting notes that we can get from the coffee. And like normally, let's say if this coffee's been on the shelves for a long time, those tasting notes, they will start to vanish, they'll start to go away, and you might not pick up, those subtle hints of, could be a sweet, those like sweet little fruitiness that you have in some coffees, or a nice acidity that you have in some coffees, right?
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Yeah, that's why it's so important. And as well, like as Manuel was saying, you buy that fresh coffee. I mean, you get to really enjoy everything that has gone into it. The picking, the careful sorting of the coffee as well. And when it's roasted fresh, and you get to drink a fresh cup of coffee. I mean, just drinking that coffee and tasting that fruitiness that you have in some coffees. It just
It has to be the whole experience.
it is, yeah. It's an entire experience in and of itself, and it makes you think about all the hard work, like they say, behind each great cup of coffee. There's countless
There's countless effort.
effort, and like great people. There's countless people, like amount of great people that are like contributing to it, and we will get into that a little bit more later on. Going from farm to cup, and what is all involved with that. So we'll get to that like in another podcast sometime later. And right now, it's just about like the freshness of the coffee. Another good thing to look for when buying fresh coffee is look for the packaging. I feel like packaging, it has makes a huge difference. I would normally recommend to get something that has a valve, a one-way valve that lets the gas escape the bag and doesn't let any oxygen into the bag to start decomposing some of the flavors that are in the coffee.
Sure. That is important, and that is something that you guys should look out for it. Like most of the roasteries don't have it, but if you can ask for it, or if you can get something, I don't know, from anywhere else, it is something that will definitely make a difference.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're gonna be thankful for it.
It's going to be a huge improvement in the cup quality as well. And I know, also if you buy coffee that comes in already these pre-sealed bags, and that comes in these cans. There's like a lot of coffee that comes in cans. Well, if you would bag coffee that is fresh, if you would bag it and then just put it into these cans or into these bags and just seal them, well, what would happen is you would those bags or the cans, they would just pop, or they would tear because of the gas that the coffee is releasing. So what they have to do normally, what these large chain roasteries do, is they have the coffee sit and degas for quite some time, where you could have different aromas. Also the coffee could absorb different aromas that are not
supposed to be.
Yeah, that are not like in the coffee, right? So that is why it's important to look for that, because like for instance here we can roast the coffee and then we can bag it instantly right after, because we have these bags with the one-way valve, and it makes a huge difference because there's no oxygen coming in, and the bag and the coffee can stay fresher longer. So speaking on coffee freshness, there's a method that a lot of people use. What do you think, Manuel, about freezing coffee?
Freezing coffee. I have heard of it before. Like, I don't know, was it James Hoffman that has a video about it?
It could be. I don't know. I haven't seen that one.
Well, anyway, I think I saw it in a video before, and I don't think that is a good idea. Most of the people would recommend it, but I just don't, because of all the. Well, if we talk about freezing, we are talking about humidity.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is something that you certainly do not want in your coffee beans.
Mm-hmm.
Because of all these, it's gonna start decomposing. Although the freezing method conserves a lot of food, like for longer times. It doesn't work with the coffee beans. It's just gonna start decomposing it. It's gonna start like creating, I don't know, humidity environment, and that is something you should avoid. Like, if I would recommend something to store your coffees, I would say the best option we have is a vacuum sealed environment that allows all the gases to come out, like we were talking before, and no oxygen to come in.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of products there that allows you to do that. Like, if you cannot have it like all the time in the one bulb bags that we have here, like, I don't know, Fellow have some pretty good options.
Yeah, they have these. They actually offer these containers where you can like really get all the air out, and it does not allow any air to come back into it. So yeah, that would be. Those are actually some good options. They're a little bit. They would be a little bit more. They would be a little pricier, but you can reuse them like for as long as you wish, right?
It's totally worth it.
But yeah, no, I agree completely. Like especially on the freezing method, it would cause the coffee to get stale so much quicker, and you would just like we were saying again, you would lose a lot of aroma and a lot of flavor, and which is definitely something you really want to keep in the coffee. Because who doesn't like waking up to a pot of coffee and just smelling that fresh, rich coffee flavor? I mean, I think most people, even people that do not enjoy coffee, they enjoy the aroma, because it just got a really intoxicating aroma, you could say. And so yeah, and you can really preserve that aroma with, just by using the freshest of beans possible.
Yeah, I mean, and even talking about this freshness, I don't know, what would you say it is the best time for consumption of coffee after it's roasted?
Alright, so this is a topic that is very debated, I guess, among different roasteries and different coffee professionals. I mean, I've heard people say, you can use it for 2 to 3 days after the roast for filter, and then maybe 5 to 7 days for espresso after roasting. And then there's different views on this matter. There's people that have gone as far as to say, you should be drinking it like 10 days after roasting, and then for espresso wait till 20 days after the roasting to get the maximum flavor out of the coffee. So that is really
it's debatable.
It is debatable for sure, but I would say the best flavors are normally typically around 5 days after roasting to about 2 weeks after roasting. And I would encourage everyone to look at the roast date and to not purchase coffee that is more than 2 weeks off of roasting.
Talking about this, like, in the past cafes and roasteries that I have worked before, like, we were always have given them about 7 to 11 hours after the roasting process, so they can degas and they can develop their aromas to a certain level. But since we are talking about this, and since we are like having this research and everything, and I don't know, like I would say it is about the same that you did. Maybe 5 to 6 days reposing time could be the most optimal, because of this. Do you remember this black honey that we roasted?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The last month, I think, and we give it a 6 time of resting time before we open the seals, and the aromas were just incredible.
Talking about that, it was just I can still remember it was a really rich aroma, that we got from that coffee, and also the taste was very great as well. So I completely agree. Also 6 days for me, from what we've tried so far, is the optimal time to brew, as well as I've also brewed coffees that are 12 days or up to 2 weeks off of roasting.
I think the most important thing here is that your coffee does not exceed the month after
Mhm.
it has been roasted.
Yep, exactly. And yeah, so yeah, obviously we would really encourage you to make sure to buy it before it reaches 2 weeks after roasting. That way you can still enjoy it for the next 2 weeks before it will really start losing a lot of flavor and a lot of the aroma as we've talked before. And also, what do you think about pre-grinding coffee? Or what would you recommend?
For myself, what I usually do is to buy coffee from the local roastery that is my choice, and just to grind it right there, because well, it is the same thing, like when you roast coffee beans, like you have a certain time of period before it starts decomposing,
Mm-hmm.
and when you grind it, that window of time
Mm-hmm.
gets even shorter.
Yeah, exactly. And why would that be?
It is because of the oxygen, because it is more easier for it to get into the coffee structure, so it starts decomposing it more faster.
Also, it's a lot finer particles, right?
Yes.
So it doesn't really have to struggle to get to the outside as much because it's already, it's right on the edge, right there already.
Like there's not a lot of, like, there's nothing like evading the oxygen
Mhm.
to get into the coffee. So what I would do is just to buy the whole bean coffee from the local roastery and just ask them if they can grind it for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that
And
works.
most roasteries, they have that option for you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think most roasteries or all roasteries should have that option for you to be able to grind the coffees there for you. But at the same time, if you have a grinder at home,
Oh, that would be better.
that would
That would
definitely
be
be
better.
an improvement. That way you can grind the coffee right before
You brew it
brewing it. So
just as much as you need.
exactly. But what would, let's say for instance, what would you choose? A blade grinder or grinding the coffee at the roastery?
No, I mean, like,
So
I would not ever recommend a blade grinder because of the, well, basically what you are getting is like shredded particles of coffee, where you might find bigger particles and finer, so it's not even grind.
Mhm.
So if you cannot get the chance to afford a board grinder, I think you should ask the roastery to grind it for you.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Like, definitely, that's something that we would really like to focus on. That do not grind your coffee in a blade grinder. Be
Also,
it your blender, or like if you have a Ninja blender, or just any blade grinder, we would really strongly advise you not to grind it there, because of what he was saying, because of the particle size, it's so different. You will extract a lot more bitter aromas, a lot more bitter flavor in your cup when you brew it, and also some that are more acidic because of the finer and the larger particle difference.
like you will have an under extraction and an over extraction in the same cup, and that would not go well. And like most of the people still do that. Like they are still grinding the coffee in the blender.
I know. Every time I hear that, I just, I really cringe on the inside, because it makes a huge difference. And for those of you that have not tried it, we would encourage you, pick up maybe just a sample. Just pick up like most roasteries, they would probably sell you a small sample of ground coffee. You could just go and pick up a small sample of ground coffee, and then maybe brew them side to side, and then see the difference, which will be quite noticeable. It should be quite noticeable from one cup to the other.
Yeah. So either way, don't do it.
Yeah, that's just our word of advice for you. Don't do it. Just
Don't do it.
You can also, if you have a if you have whole beans at home, you have been grinding them with a blade grinder, you can also come over here anytime, and we will grind that coffee for you. Like we would, gladly grind that coffee for you, so you could, enjoy a great cup of coffee.
Like the point of all this is to enjoy.
Yeah,
Enjoy
exactly.
the coffee that you are making and make a whole experience out of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it should be. Coffee is meant to be enjoyed.
Yes,
So
yes, definitely.
yeah, and also like at the same time, if you buy coffee from your local roasters, well, what most of the times the roasters, they have been in contact either directly or indirectly with the producers, themselves, and they know the story. And also like knowing the story behind the coffee, knowing how the coffee got to your cup, it makes it really enjoyable. You take a sip and you're like, like so many like hands worked to get me this great cup of coffee. And I think it's very important to highlight that part of the journey that the coffee takes. And we will do that more yet in some later episodes, where we will be talking about everything that's happening from the origin to
To the cup.
the cup. So yeah, this was yeah.
So, well, another thing that I would like to talk before we get to the end of this episode is about the ethical sourceness of coffee beans. Can you tell me about it?
Well, that for me is very, very important to to make sure that the coffee that we do offer here, that it is ethically sourced, meaning that the people who worked tirelessly to get you that coffee, to make sure that it is produced the right way, to make sure that it's picked the right way, that they also get paid fairly. So that is something that is really important to us, and also it reflects in the coffees that we offer, especially in the one that we have from our Jose Francisco Yamba, which is which we are assured the producers, they've been paid their fair share. And we also have, like most of our other coffees, we buy them from these cooperatives that also make sure that all the farmers are paid equal to what they produce, right? So yeah, it's also very important to look for these labels. If it's fair trade coffee, like fair trade, if it is certified fair trade coffee, you can rest assured that the farmer has been paid the fair price for his coffee.
But I think also, like, talking about this fair and ethical traceability, I think it comes all the way from the farmers, and I would say even to the baristas that are working on the coffee chain. Like, I don't know, like the coffee industry has been for quite a years now like a pretty unfair business for everyone. Like in this past decade, all the people around it has been making like more conscious. They have been making more conscious about the whole deal that is to make a single cup of coffee into a single customer. It makes a whole lot of deal. It's hard work. There's a lot of stories in every single cup of coffee, and I think people should get aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and well, like yes, like for example, like Michael said, we are offering coffees that are certified to be fair trade.
Mm-hmm.
So if you ever get the chance, well, you know where we are, and we'll be glad to serve you. Those cups are amazing.
Yeah, no, they're absolutely amazing cup of coffee, and at the same time, that's also another thing that really sets your roasteries apart from these chain these chain roasters that roast quantity over quality. Yep. Whereas a lot of Brazil is one of the most what is the biggest exporter of coffee, but at the same time, a lot of the coffee in Brazil that is not specialty coffee, it's harvested by machines and processed by machines. Whereas specialty coffee has to be hand-picked to ensure that just the ripest of all the beans are picked at the appropriate time. So when you buy, a cup of coffee, and you know that it is a high quality, that is a very nice cup of coffee, you know that there was more people being paid, or that more people had a job to make that cup of coffee. Whereas with other coffee that you can find in the store on the shelves that have been sitting there for a long time, a lot of that they've really been able to remove all of the work that people have been putting in there by processing it with machines and like trying to get as many have as many machines as possible, and they reduce the human labor that is needed for producing a specialty cup of coffee. Whereas with a specialty cup of coffee, you can be assured that they had to hire somebody to pick the coffees. So there's more people that get to be involved in making that specialty cup of coffee.
It's a human work.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the whole deal behind the specialty coffee. Like, I don't know, you get the human touch that you're not gonna be getting for a shelf coffee or something.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I think that is the biggest difference between the specialty coffee shops, specialty coffee beans, and just this big retail coffee. Like, it is this thing that we have to talk about. It is the experience.
Yeah, exactly.
It is the experience that you are drinking and that you are enjoying. So if you're still wondering what is the difference, I think that it is experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, and like we were saying, it's a special farmer with coffee is specialty picked, specialty transported, specialty roasted, and then specialty served for a special customer.
That is true. So everything's special around.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we try to highlight here, and I think that just about wraps up what we're talking about in this episode. And for the next weeks, we're going to be doing a series on everything involving from the origin, and then we're going to work our way through to the cup, going into detail about all of the the things that happen along the way. So stay tuned for next week. And this was Hebron Talks. We're going to be signing out for now. Have a great week.